Friends, I have some news. I have been accepted for a test knit. Yay! I shall be test knitter for this here pattern. Bren by Sarah Monroe or Subito Farms. I sincerely hope they are not already regretting their decision. I do not need to explain why. Florals, it looks almost Art Nouveau. I saw it on Yarn Pond and it stuck my mind ever since. I have done one test knit before, and that was 5 years ago for a pair of mittens. Let's talk yarn. For the main color of this sweater, I am using this Rowan Island Blend Fine, and this absolutely amazing color. It's one of my favorites, yellow. When I bought the sweater quantity of this, I'm going to admit, almost a year and a half ago, I actually paired it with this color in the same line of yarn, a purple. But I think for this exact sweater, from my Lumi pullover sweater, I still have 1.5 skeins of this Rowan felted tweed in this lovely speckled green. And I think these two, yes, this is going to happen. Main color yellow, contrast color green. Now I am a little bit of a streber. Always have been, always will be. And since this is called test knitting, getting good grades in it is both achievable and completely normal to want to achieve. This is why I have been carefully reading through the pattern even before I started. I know, shocking. This is not what I would mostly do, but I said this is test knitting. And the pattern already looks like this. Like, with notes. With big notes. Well, you must know, of course, for context, that for my day job, I am actually the editor-in-chief of a magazine. Well, my title is communications officer, but that entails that I'm also the editor-in-chief of our magazine. And in Dutch we would call this beroepsmisvorming. Got some job bias going on. Yeah, I think first thing that I'm going to do for this pattern is email the designers some notes that I already have before starting. As I said, I hope they are not yet regretting accepting me. So, gauge swatches. The pattern is knit on 3.5 millimeters, and well, I canonically have a gauge with loose morals. So, well, this was knit already on 3.25 millimeter needles and then lightly blocked and, well, too big. Yoink. So we now have a gauge swatch that meets the requirements when lightly blocked, and it's on 3 millimeters. Loose gauge strikes again. For a colourwork sweater, it might be a little bit weird that I had to get gauge on stockinette. So, I don't know, I might, when I'm doing the color work, recheck for gauge and adjust accordingly if I have to. I have marked all the instructions that I have to follow because I'm making it in size 2. However, this is probably an American thing. Size 0 is also a thing, so I have to knit the third size to be size 2. I am the tiniest bit concerned about a neckline. I had to dig out my smallest cable to be able to start knitting in the round. I'm now going to transfer to a slightly bigger cable because I have been making a lot of increases. So I hope I hope this now fits a 40 centimeter cable, because otherwise I don't know if it will fit my head. And it's not that I have a particularly big head. You know, I have a perfectly mediocre sized head. I don't know. Let's see. Let's just transfer it to a slightly bigger cable and see what happens. Not sure. Now, of course, the cables are in the way, so it doesn't stretch the way it should, but yeah, I'm concerned. I'm going to continue knitting a little bit further until I have a little bit more space. Or, you know, maybe I could put it on some spare yarn so that it could stretch, so that I know right now if it will fit my head. I already thought that 80 stitches at the gauge that it requires is not much. And since I am knitting like the third size, so size 2, size 0 only has to cast on 60 stitches. How is 60 stitches in a 6 stitches per inch gauge going to fit anyone's head? Yeah, I might just put a little bit of spare yarn in here. Then the conversion to a larger cable size was moot, but I'm still not unworried. Okay, now that there is no cable. Moment of truth. Okay. That worked. I don't think I could handle anything smaller than this, so anyone knitting sizes 0 or 1, good luck. But this should work. It's tight. It's like, I mean tight, not really tight on the neck, but yeah, it should work. Yeah. Being in a test knitter group chat is a weird experience. Like, I actually thought of myself to be quite a fast knitter. I've been knitting for like 3 weeks on this now, and I'm almost done with the yoke. However, there's people that finished the entire sweater last week. Put things into perspective, I guess. But talking about the yoke, as I said, I'm nearly done with it. The wreath motif is almost finished, and I'm so glad I went for these colors. They just make me happy looking at them. A little check-in now that the yoke is done, the color work is done. Wait, I'll put you somewhere. I have, as you can see, already started on a first sleeve. This all seems to be fitting rather nicely. And I don't know, just the motif gives it like a very artistic, painterly feeling. That's what I'm currently thinking. What are your thoughts? I do like the color combination that I chose. Yeah, the green on the yellow. That was a good choice, and I also hope that this choice is something that gives inspiration, like when other knitters are checking out this newly published pattern and then see that there is like a completely different color combination than what the designer intended. I don't know, something like that always gives me inspiration. I like looking at the projects that other people have made and the color choices that they have gone with. I don't know, and I think this is why they're out enough to like stand out. But of course these are my favorite colors, so I am a little bit biased, just a little bit. Now this was just a colourwork yoke with a chart. I don't have many tester's notes on that. If your chart is good, your chart is good. However, there is one thing I want to say about the knitting of this yoke is that the designer notes that she used leatherback jacquard. Personally, for me, that is too suggestive. I might be putting very high expectations on designers here, but if there is a reason why you chose to go with leatherback jacquard, please do tell me, because now I cannot make an informed decision on my own, and I just went with whatever the hell I do all the time, and my floats just look like this. But maybe those are a little bit too high expectations. I don't know. I would think it logic that if you have a specific reason for using leatherback jacquard, you tell the people that you want them to use it as well. But I didn't, because it was just a suggestion. I do love how there is just one neatly on the shoulder, like epaulets. Yes, now continue the sea of stockinette. And yeah, this is actually the very first time that I'm doing the sleeves before the body, but the sleeves are first in the instructions, so I'm a good tester. I'm doing what the instructions say. Yesterday, during my monthly craft get-together in the town, in the city, I finished the first sleeve. However, I'm not happy with it. I only brought like my small circumference circular needle, and the circumference of the sleeve was getting smaller than that, so I have like these places where, yeah, you see that's where I had to do the magic loop, but since the cable wasn't like floppy enough to do that, I now have these ugly bits of green shining through on two places. I don't like that. I might go in and redo this part of the sleeve, but I think I will do that at the end. It's the end of April now, and the deadline for this test knit is June 1st. So I first want to get it all done, because I'm a little bit more behind schedule than I actually would have liked. And then I'll see if I'm going to change the sleeve or not. I need to get the test knit done first. Another issue that I have ran into is this is all I have left of my contrast color, and I still need to do a second sleeve and also the hem, so I have ordered more of this Rowan felted wheat. I hope that it comes in soon. But of course, before I can use that new Rowan felted wheat, I need to finish my sleeve over here. Well, looky here who has arrived in time. And just when I'm at the point that I need to start doing more color work. I didn't film it because I don't think that a continuous ocean of stockinette is that visually stimulating for me or for you. So here's what we've got: 16.5 centimeters of just the yellow. The yellow, of course, is a pretty color. So yes, we are so nearly done. It is now May 21st. I think I can finish my test knit before June 1st, even though the designer, when I contacted her about the fact that the Belgian post was on strike and I might not get my contrast color in time, told me no worries. I only plan to publish these patterns like at the end of the year, so don't worry about that deadline. You know, for my own honor as a knitter, I want to have this finished before June 1st. Yes, well spotted. I am weaving in my ends, which means that I am done with the knitting, and it is not June 1st yet. It is in fact quite literally May 31st. But I'm done! I made it in time! I clicked the done button on Yarn Pond yesterday because I finished knitting yesterday and I thought, well, that's good enough. But now let's actually finish with weaving in the ends and then also blocking the sweater. I'm not going to really stretch the sweater while blocking. Actually, it's just to relax the stitches, more specifically on the collar work. I just tried on the sweater. I have some footage of that, and it fits. It fits perfectly. There is no zhuzhing that needs to be happening with the blocking. The only weird thing that I noticed is that my sleeves are not equal, even though the pattern is like a counting pattern. You have to do 13 repeats of this many stitches and then your sleeves are finished. So I don't know, I must have been very loose stitching on one side and tighter stitching on the other. I don't know what happened, but they are not equal. They're siblings, not twins. Anyway, let's just pin this down so that it doesn't fly away, because today, unlike the previous days, is not going to be a very sunny hot day, but a little bit clouded, maybe also windy. Yeah, let's just pin it down so that it doesn't fly away. Not to stretch it, but just to keep it safe. I often already film like me wearing the finished piece before blocking it, because I honestly don't know how fast this is going to dry in this here Belgian weather, and sometimes my editing deadline comes before the drying of the blocking, so we will see if you have to see the unblocked or the blocked version as a final result. And then the ends can end up in my baggie of scraps. For at the end of the year, I will probably do something with this. So she did relax and grow a bit from blocking, which means that now the sleeves are a little bit too big, but that also camouflages the fact that I thought that they look different. Now they're just both too big. Just got to scrunch up my sleeves all of the time, which is something I do anyway. But the fabric does flow a lot nicer now. There still is a little bit of a line from blocking in the shoulder, but that will, you know, flatten out with use. One thing that I wanted to grow with blocking is a neckline. It did not. It still is an issue getting it on. And it also feels a little bit constricting. It's very tight up here. But for the rest it feels really comfortable, feels really good. If this wasn't a test knit, I probably would have changed a couple of things. Firstly, yeah, even without blocking, these sleeves were like on the long side for me. And I would probably have made them a bit shorter. Because now I will continuously be rolling them up. I just don't like sleeves passing a certain point on my wrist because I'm always crafting, I'm always doing stuff, and then they are in the way. It also causes some sensory things when they are too close to my hands, and I don't know. I would have shortened the sleeves. I would probably also have shortened the body because I prefer a cropped look on most of my sweaters. Now chances are that I will wear a high-waisted skirt on top of it and then, you know, hide all this beautiful ham color work that I did. That is now something that is quite possible that will happen. Now, to conclude this little diary of a test knitter, would I do this again? I'm fairly certain that I would, because, well, I like doing this in a couple of ways. Of course, it's knitting. I like knitting. I like knitting something that is really beautiful, and that is exactly what I did. But also, I felt like I could actually give a valid contribution to this knitting pattern, both as a knitter and as an editor. I'm an editor in real life, I have told you this before, and I have hopefully given some useful insights to the designer about how the structure of her pattern could be more clear. Not to brag about my editing skills, but I think I gave some, you know, really useful suggestions that could help other knitters knit this pattern, because it is a beautiful pattern and I want to see it in the world, and I want to see other people knit it as well. Folky flowers, the world needs to be filled with folky flowers. And if I could contribute to the pattern being more readable and enjoyable for others, then yeah, I feel good about that. Like giving a different kind of contribution to the knitting community. I think I will scour Yarn Pond a little more often, but that would probably be for after Tour de Vlies, because during Tour de Vlies I got nothing else to do than spin. I also hope that next to giving a contribution by giving the pattern designer suggestions on how to make her pattern more clearly readable, I also hope that I gave kind of a contribution to the knitting community by making this video of a little test knitter's diary, just as entertainment, I guess. Anyway, if you like these kind of highway shenanigans, then maybe you could like, comment or subscribe, but of course that is all up to you. And as for me, I will see you in the next video. But before we do that, maybe you could look at some more knitting shenanigans. Bye!